Hi, this is Mr. Tatro, Mr. T. Today we're going to go over sheet metals hand tools. What we're going to go over is layout and measuring tools. So the first tool we're going to talk about is a steel rule. So this one happens to be 18 inches long. Their capacity is determined by their length. All steel rules are going to have two sides. This one happens to have 16ths and 8ths, and then 32nds and 64ths. All we're going to use for our layouts and fabrications is the 16th and 8th side. We can use this not only for measuring, but for drawing straight lines or connecting two measurements. Put it on your piece of metal to where your mark would be. Draw a line either with a scratch or a Sharpie to get our dimension lines. Again, steel rule. So the next tool, as I sort of just demonstrated, scratch off. We use this to draw lines or create indicator points on our metal. This isn't a center punch for heavy material. Its capacity is 20 gauge mild steel. So we could draw lines, or we could use it as an indicator to make a dent used for Dremel points or dividers, or an indicator to bend from the other side. Another measuring tool we have is a scratch gauge. This is a shop-made tool. This one happens to have 4 different dimensions: 1/4 inch and 1 inch on one side, 3/4 of an inch and 1/2 inch on the other. Depending on what measurement we want to use, say for instance 1/2 inch, we'd have our piece slightly hanging off the table, put our scratch gauge up against, and then just simply draw it back to you. And that gives us an exact 1/2 inch line. Very common in a trade, especially for our commonly used dimensions, so you wouldn't have to measure and mark it all the time. You just grab a scratch gauge, do whatever dimension you need to do. Next we have dividers. Dividers, again, their capacity is limited by their size. So this happens to be 6 inch or 8 inch. So what that means is they could only do an 8 inch radius or a 6 inch radius circle. So as I sort of demonstrated, we have a center point. We would open this up to whatever our dimension was, put it on that center point, and either draw an arc or a full circle. Again, we would set this to whatever dimension we needed for our radius for our circle. So dividers. Next we have Dremel points. Dremel points, just like dividers, drawing arcs and circles, but obviously these are drawing larger arcs and circles. Work the same exact way. We'd set one side the way we want it, next to where our dimension is, and then we would scribe an arc or a circle using that tool. So, Dremel points. Next we have a gravity punch. Again, another homemade or shop-made tool. We would put this on the intersection of our dimensions, create a center point or an indicator for bending or using Dremel points or dividers. Next we have a combination square. Combination square does a 90-degree angle, a 45-degree angle, and also can be used as a level if it has a spirit level. Not very accurate level because it's very small, but could be used as a level. We can adjust the dimension that we want to use. We always want to have the body and the blade, so we want to have the body up against our material and use the outside of the blade to mark. So if you're left-handed or right-handed, I'm right-handed, so I would hold the body in the left hand, mark the right side of the rule. If I were left-handed, just the opposite. Body against, I would hold it with my right hand and mark the outside of the rule with my left. So, combination square. Framing square. 2-foot square or carpenter square. 2 foot because the length of the longest blade is 2 feet. Again, a layout tool or fabrication tool. If we're building something that has to be square, we can use this to make sure that our project ends up square. So, framing square. Next we have tape measures. Again, tape measures, like all the tools I've demonstrated so far, capacity is limited to whatever length they are. This one happens to be a 25-foot, what we should be using in the trade, or a 12-foot tape measure. Okay, 12-foot tape measure, it's limited to measuring anything less than 12 feet. 25 feet, limited to measuring anything up to 25 feet. Biggest difference is the side of the blade The size of the blade would allow us to reach, to measure something if we had to estimate for a ductwork connection to a pleno or something like that. So again, 25 foot is what we primarily use in the trade. Next, we have French curves. French curves are for drawing arcs or circles that are irregular. In other words, they don't have a common center point. We create a series of intersections and then use French curves to create arcs and circles. We use this on parallel line, radial line, or triangulation type fittings. And last for layout and measuring tools, levels. This is an 8-inch level or a torpedo level. This would be a 2-foot level. Levels, same thing. The size of the tool is its capacity. A 2-foot level, you shouldn't really use anything 4 feet or less. You want to use a 2-foot level. So if it was greater than 4 feet, you would go to a 4-foot level. Excuse me. Torpedo level is something we use in the trade often. When we hang our ductwork, has a magnet. We could hook the magnet on it and make sure that our ductwork is staying level and or plumb. When we level something going vertically, plumb. When we level something horizontally, level. So again, torpedo level, 2-foot level. Those are our basic layout and fabrication tools.